outside, Finding Bigfoot looked like an adventure about chasing myths in the woods. The cast were explorers, chasing what they believed in. But off-camera, their story turned darker. The show's cancellation, health rumors, tragic deaths of friends, and bitter feuds tore apart their dream. What began as a quest for mystery became a series of heartbreaking losses. Colleagues who died, fans who risked everything, a community torn apart. Some struggled with ordinary jobs to get by, while others fought to stay hopeful despite ridicule. Before dismissing another Sasquatch story, keep watching. The truth behind Finding Bigfoot is more human and heartbreaking than you could imagine right now. And subscribe right now so you don't miss out on more. When Finding Bigfoot first hit television in 2011, it promised viewers what had always seemed impossible: that 4 dedicated researchers would finally prove Bigfoot's existence. Each week, Matt Moneymaker, Bobo, Cliff, and Ranae trekked through remote forests, following witness reports and setting up camera traps. The show's formula, night vision hunts, wood knocks, and howls, was repetitive, yet audiences tuned in anyway. Over more than 100 episodes, the cast never captured conclusive evidence of a Sasquatch, yet their camaraderie and enthusiasm made the series a cult hit. Even critics called it addictive, acknowledging the odd appeal. Off-camera, however, the search always ran up against the same wall. There was no Bigfoot to be found. Ratings eventually slipped, and, after a finale aired in 2018, Animal Planet quietly canceled the show. No announcement heralded its end, and the promised evidence never materialized. A 3-year silence followed before a 2-hour special landed on Discovery Plus in 2021. Advertised like a nostalgic reunion rather than a fresh expedition, the show had been shuffled behind a streaming paywall, and the momentum was gone. Instead of a triumphant return, the special felt like an epilogue, highlighting the cast's good humor but also their failure to accomplish their mission. The tragedy is that the show's collapse wasn't just a programming decision, it marked the end of a dream. For nearly a decade, these 4 hunters had gambled their careers on delivering the holy grail of cryptozoology. The cancellation meant losing steady paychecks and a national platform. Viewers moved on. Critics joked that the only thing they proved was how not to find a Sasquatch, and the cast's once fervent quest risked fading into obscurity. Those empty woods and unanswered questions would soon be joined by personal hardships that made the show's ending feel like only the first blow. When the cameras stopped rolling, the cast of Finding Bigfoot were left not with fame, but uncertainty. For James "Bobo" Fay, the show's end meant returning to Eureka, California, and working on commercial fishing boats and odd jobs to get by. Bigfoot research doesn't pay a salary. His income from the show had been his only steady support. He still co-hosts a podcast with Cliff Barackman, but a Bigfoot podcast doesn't pay the bills. Bobo's dramatic weight loss after filming sparked rumors that he was sick. In reality, he said his slimmer look came from exercise and a healthier lifestyle. The speculation underscores how even personal changes become fodder for gossip when you're tethered to a fringe hobby. Cliff faced the end of the show differently. Rather than return to his previous life, he doubled down on Sasquatch. In 2019, he and his wife opened the North American Bigfoot Center in Boring, Oregon. The museum displays casts of footprints, audio recordings, and film clips, and offers tours and even weddings. It keeps the legend alive but depends heavily on tourism, an unstable source of income for a niche subject. These reinventions underline a tragic reality. The cast loved their work, but there is no mainstream career path for tracking an unproven hominid. Without television paychecks, each hunter must scramble for stability, hauling nets on fishing boats, running small museums, or talking into microphones for free. They persist because Bigfoot is a calling, but passion doesn't guarantee security. For Bobo, Cliff, and the others, life after the cameras means trading stardom for side gigs while trying to keep a fading dream alive. There's an irony in devoting your life to proving a creature exists. Once the cameras stop, the world forgets. The cast's dedication remains unchanged, but without the show, their hunt fades fades into obscurity. The end of Finding Bigfoot did not just mark a professional setback, it thrust the cast into a new kind of spotlight. Without the show's platform, they became fair game for rumors and online mockery. Most of the speculation focused on James "Bobo" Fay, whose dramatic weight loss between the early seasons and his later appearances startled viewers. Social media posts accused him of being gravely ill or even dying, some claiming he had cancer or that Bigfoot had cursed him. In reality, Bobo had embarked on a healthier lifestyle. He took up exercise, changed his diet, and shaved his hair. But in the echo chamber of the internet, his personal transformation morphed into feverish gossip. The same forums that once debated Sasquatch footprints now argued over whether Bobo was on his deathbed. For a man who still fishes to pay his bills, it must have been surreal to read strangers declare him dead. The cruelty extended beyond health rumors. Matt Moneymaker, the founder of the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization and the show's alpha personality, became a lightning rod for critics. Skeptics labeled him a fraud for charging membership fees to attend expeditions and for promising evidence that never materialized. An ongoing feud with Canadian filmmaker Todd Standing spilled into the open when Standing accused Moneymaker of selling snake oil and running a staged television show. Moneymaker fired back by comparing Standing to notorious hoaxers. The argument exposed the wider schisms within the Bigfoot community. Researchers who should be united by a shared passion instead attack each other's methods and motives. Those conflicts erode trust, and the public sees only infighting rather than cooperation. Ranae Holland, the show's only skeptic and a biologist by training, faced her own form of hostility. Some Bigfoot enthusiasts labeled her a traitor for doubting eyewitness accounts, while skeptics accused her of lending scientific credibility to pseudoscience. Cliff Barackman kept a lower profile, but still endures jabs about operating a museum to a myth. In online comments and conspiracy forums, the cast members' love of cryptids is treated as evidence of gullibility or opportunism. Few acknowledge the genuine curiosity that drives them. Instead, they are caricatured as punchlines. Perhaps the greatest tragedy of this rumor mill is that it distracts from the real dangers and sacrifices involved in field research. When strangers obsess over Bobo's waistline or hurl insults at Moneymaker, they ignore the months spent hiking through remote wilderness, the nights in freezing tents, and the lost weekends chasing faint reports. The cast members have devoted their adult lives to a quest that most scientists dismiss. That commitment has cost them steady work, strained personal relationships, and, in some cases, their physical safety. Yet online chatter reduces those sacrifices to gossip fodder. The internet's appetite for scandal means that instead of celebrating resilience, it magnifies human imperfections. For the Finding Bigfoot cast, coping with health rumors and digital harassment became an unexpected part of the job. They wanted to prove Bigfoot was real. Instead, they had to prove they were still alive. For the Finding Bigfoot cast, the search for an elusive creature has always carried a weight beyond television ratings. They are part of a small, close-knit community that bonds over long nights in the woods. When tragedy strikes that community, it hits hard. During the show's run, James "Bobo" Fay lost a dear friend and fellow Bigfooter named Manuel Solorio. In January 2012, Solorio, aged only 48, suffered a suspected heart attack while camping alone in the Pacific Northwest. He was out Bigfooting, following the same passion that had forged his friendship with Bobo. Years earlier, Solorio had witnessed a Sasquatch during a live radio broadcast with Bobo and researcher John Freitas. His death shocked the community. Bobo later said, "The loss served as a reminder that searching for Bigfoot is not just about thrills. It involves real risks, including isolation, extreme weather, and underlying health conditions." That same year, another tragedy struck when 17-year-old Riley Rawlins, the son of Bigfoot researcher Monica Rawlins, was killed in a car accident after a driver ran a red light. Though not directly linked to the show, Riley's death reverberated through Bigfoot circles. He had attended expeditions and shared his mother's passion, and his passing underscored how fragile life can be. These losses weighed heavily on the cast. As they continued filming, they carried memories of friends who would never again walk beside them in the forest. The dangers of the hunt became tragically clear again in December 2024, when 2 Oregon men died while searching for Bigfoot in remote Washington forests. After they failed to return on Christmas Eve, a 3-day search found their bodies near a wilderness road. Authorities ruled their deaths the result of exposure and poor preparation. The men had ventured into snowbound terrain without adequate clothing or supplies. Their story made national headlines because they perished chasing a creature many scientists insist does not exist. Critics called their deaths a senseless waste, but for the cast of Finding Bigfoot, it was a sobering reminder. The pursuit that defines their lives can be fatal. They have spent countless nights in similar conditions, often relying only on experience and intuition to stay safe. The tragedy reinforced the need for caution and preparation, and it underscored why some family members worry about them whenever they head into the wilderness. Yet death does not always come from the elements. In September 2025, the Bigfoot community lost perhaps its most respected scientist, Dr. Jeff Meldrum, a professor of anatomy and anthropology at Idaho State University. Meldrum lent academic credibility to the search for Sasquatch. He studied footprint casts, analyzed gait patterns, and engaged skeptics with evidence and logic. After a brief battle with brain cancer, he died at 67, leaving a void in both academia and the community of researchers who looked to him for guidance. For the Finding Bigfoot cast, his death was a personal blow as well. Meldrum had been a guest on the show and a mentor to Cliff Barackman, encouraging him to maintain rigorous standards when collecting evidence. Without Meldrum's voice, the gap between amateur enthusiasts and mainstream scientists widens. These tragedies illustrate how heavy the cost of pursuing Bigfoot can be. Friends die suddenly, accidents rob families of loved ones, and respected scientists succumb to illness. Every loss ripples outward. The cast must process grief while continuing to chase a creature that remains unproven. Each new expedition becomes both a tribute to those who are gone and a test of their own resilience. They cannot bring back Manuel Solorio, Riley Rawlins, the 2 Oregon hunters, or Dr. Meldrum, but they can honor them by pressing on. There is tragedy in this dedication too. To be defined by a search that may never succeed means living with perpetual uncertainty. For the Finding Bigfoot cast, that uncertainty is compounded by the knowledge that some of their comrades have already paid the ultimate price. By the time Finding Bigfoot went off the air, the show had become a punchline in popular culture. Late-night comedians joked that a program promising to uncover a giant ape had done nothing but chase shadows. South Park mocked the series in an episode that depicted the team as bumbling buffoons. Critics wrote that the show was a symptom of America's appetite for reality TV nonsense, a weekly reminder that cable networks would film anything if it drew viewers. Even fans often tuned in more for the banter and mishaps than for any expectation of evidence. The catchphrases of wood knocks, squatchy vibes, and thermal hits entered memes. For the cast, it was hard to ignore that their life's work had been reduced to punchlines. The ridicule wasn't merely for entertainment, it cut deeper. To scientists and skeptics, the show exemplified pseudoscience. Instead of controlled studies or rigorous methodology, viewers saw the cast following anecdotal reports, using ambiguous sounds as evidence and rarely applying standard wildlife biology techniques. Academic journals and skeptic magazines criticized the program for conflating speculation with fact, arguing it misled audiences about the nature of scientific inquiry. Universities sometimes used Finding Bigfoot as a cautionary tale in critical thinking classes. Here is how not to conduct research. This stigma bled into the cast's personal reputation. Ranae Holland, despite being a trained biologist, found that her association with the show made some colleagues question her seriousness as a scientist. Cliff Barackman, who had built a career around studying footprints and hair samples, discovered that mainstream science dismissed him as an enthusiast at best, a crank at worst. The pseudoscience label also had economic consequences. Sponsorships and speaking engagements dried up when companies feared backlash for endorsing fringe beliefs. Libraries that once hosted Bigfoot lectures withdrew invitations after complaints that they were promoting misinformation. Even the North American Bigfoot Center in Oregon encountered zoning battles and protests from locals who felt the museum exploited myths rather than educating. The cast learned that when you base your career on a creature most scholars deem imaginary, you risk being shut out of serious discourse. Perhaps most painful was the realization that public mockery can deter younger generations from taking up the search. Bobo, Matt, Ranae, and Cliff often speak about inspiring children to appreciate wilderness and follow their curiosity. But when Bigfoot research is framed as a joke, potential future researchers turn away. The cast endures jokes and skepticism because they believe the truth matters. But the ridicule fosters a culture where valid questions about wildlife and unexplained phenomena are dismissed outright. The irony is profound. A show meant to promote curiosity became a cultural shorthand for gullibility. That stigma is a burden they will carry long after the cameras stop. While ridicule from outsiders is difficult, the conflict within the Bigfoot community can be even more bitter. Finding Bigfoot cast members often found themselves embroiled in feuds with rival shows and fellow researchers. The most public spat erupted with the cast of the series Mountain Monsters. In 2015, Matt Moneymaker tweeted that Mountain Monsters was a scripted, fictional show and that its hunters were actors. The Ames team fired back, calling Finding Bigfoot the real hoax. The feud escalated, with both sides hurling insults on social media. Fans watched as cryptozoologists who claimed to seek truth instead attacked each other's integrity. The fight might have been entertaining to onlookers, but for those dedicated to the field, it was disheartening. Infighting damaged credibility and divided a community that was already marginalized. The conflicts weren't confined to social media. Over the years, Moneymaker has faced accusations of mismanaging expeditions and prioritizing profits over research. In one notable incident, a Florida man filed a defamation lawsuit against Moneymaker and a Bigfoot news site, alleging he had been insulted and falsely portrayed after attending a BFRO expedition. The case dredged up claims that the BFRO charged high fees for expeditions, promised evidence and delivered little, and dismissed dissenters as bad for business. Moneymaker and his supporters argued that he had only been protecting participants from unsafe behavior. Regardless of the truth, the case highlighted the tensions between commercial expedition organizers and participants who felt exploited. These controversies were amplified by the broader trend of Bigfoot entertainment. Shows like Expedition Bigfoot, Finding Monsters, and various YouTube channels sprang up to compete. Each program had its own approach to evidence, and they often criticized one another to stand out. Some accused others of faking footage or planting audio. Rumors swirled that certain cast members in multiple shows were secretly working together to stage dramatic encounters. Even within the Finding Bigfoot team, there were whispers of tension. Fans on forums speculated that Matt and Ranae clashed over methods, though the cast publicly downplayed any friction. In private, some researchers expressed frustration that sensationalism had eclipsed genuine fieldwork. They worried that the race for ratings turned Bigfoot research into reality television wrestling, complete with staged rivalries and contrived drama. The fracturing of the community isn't just a PR problem, it has emotional consequences. Many Bigfoot enthusiasts, including the Finding Bigfoot cast, entered this pursuit because they believed collaboration would bring them closer to answers. Instead, they have seen friendships end and alliances crumble over disagreements about evidence and ethics. The constant bickering discourages serious academics from getting involved. It also leaves the cast feeling isolated within their own passion. When your life's work is dismissed by mainstream science and attacked by your peers, discouragement creeps in. The tragedy is not just that Bigfoot remains unfound, it's that the search has fractured the community that cares most about it. Mending these divides may be the cast's greatest challenge yet. Without unity, the dream of proving Sasquatch's existence grows ever more remote. After the cameras stop, the cast refused refused to fade away. Cliff Barackman poured his savings into a small museum and research hub in Oregon, displaying footprint casts and recordings, and hosting talks and summer camps. The North American Bigfoot Center keeps the legend alive and funds new outings. He and Bobo launched a podcast that interviews witnesses and researchers, building a community that no longer depends on network schedules. Listeners call in with stories and questions, creating a dialogue that television never allowed. They attend conventions and festivals, meeting fans who still believe and selling casts to support expeditions. Ranae Holland embraced science outreach, telling students that skepticism and curiosity can coexist. Matt Moneymaker continues guiding paid expeditions, controversial yet popular with people eager to experience the hunt. Together, they show that passion can survive ridicule by shifting to podcasts, museums, and lectures. Resilience itself becomes their legacy. Yet the future is uncertain. Mainstream interest has moved on, and technology has failed to turn up evidence. Science remains unconvinced. The death of Dr. Jeff Meldrum removed a bridge to academia. The cast are older now, feeling the physical toll of decades in the field. Knees ache, hearing fades. Families ask when the chase will end. Bigfoot itself is becoming folklore rather than frontier possibility. Younger audiences see Sasquatch as a meme, and streaming platforms favor flashier shows. Without proof, the environmental argument for protecting hypothetical habitats rings hollow. A core of believers persists, but as the world focuses on climate change, biodiversity loss, and pandemics, the cast must face that their life's work may remain unresolved and increasingly irrelevant. Loving a mystery that the wider world may have outgrown is its own kind of tragedy. Each season brings hope.